Hey, welcome back, MobilityWOD. The famous, the young, the Courtney Walker in town. Now, I want you to know this. One purple toenail, and it's just, you don't judge her, because obviously all cool people have one weird colored toe. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about today. What I'm talking about today, thanks for the comments about my toes, people. I have feelings too. What I want to talk about today is a clever way that we've come up with based on some of the thinking about Jill Miller. Now, this is her yoga tune-up ball, which we've talked about, and it's a little bit grippier, right? It's a little bit softer than the lacrosse ball. We've always thought the lacrosse ball was a great tool because it's cheap and ubiquitous and universal, but it's a little bit too round, right? It's a little too square, it's a little too hard, it's a little too soft. It's not perfect, but it's cheap. So we want to start evolving our thinking a little bit about having some other tools. Now, one of the things that I feel like is my process about this has evolved is that you should be able to fix about 95% of the problems that you have. Do you think that in 2.5 million years of evolution you evolved to have someone be able to fix your problems? No. So our hypothesis is, as we get clever and as we get better at solving our own set of problems, we should be able to fix most of the issues. We should be able to do most of the techniques that are done to us by physios, by chiros, by osteos, and there's maybe only one or two things that we probably need some help with. Everything else we should be able to take a crack at, and that's what we're getting closer to. So this has been one of the missing pieces. We flip on your stomach, Courtney? Actually, go ahead and squat for us real quick. So as Courtney squats, we are looking at ankle range, and we've been working on these ankles for her so that she can actually get her toes down and maintain that ankle position. And go and let that ankle get a little soft on you. Go the other way. So this is a common problem that we see, is that athletes drive the knee out, and they can't actually get the ankle unimpinged. Go ahead and screw that into a good position and get that off. And so what ends up happening is that this is something we've been working on with Courtney to get her into a stronger position where she maintains her arch and that the line of force is good. Where we see a lot of people having problems is that they go ahead and collapse a little bit. They collapse just a little bit, and because they impinge here, this is where we start to see bone spurs develop. This is where we start to see the ankle collapse. We start to see the navicular bone pop out the side. We get a lot of weird kind of tendon loading here through this posterior tib. We get off-axis loading in the plantar fascia of the foot. But it really is not a stable arch. I need to have the arch into this position. The problem is if my calcaneus gets tight, I can't do that. So flip on your stomach for a second. When we see Courtney's foot, we see that she has a history of collapsing on this side. It's told by this bone spur. That means that she's loaded down this Achilles off axis. She's missed this range, the subtalar neutral, which is the bone between the bones of the leg. This is her calcaneus, or heel bone. So when I put her into neutral, just between the two, and dorsiflex her, I can still say I have full range of motion. But for a long time, what would happen is she was stiff here, and as she loaded the ankle up, the Achilles would pull off axis or obliquely, and we got this bone spur developing. So this is one of the problems. And then this is where we start to see crazy bunion development. And you can see how our plantar fascia loads. It's even twisting in that sheet instead of loading. And it looks different. Here it's smooth and beautiful. Here, when I load this up, I get this little torsional twist, which is the mechanism for avulsion of the bone and developing all the other problems. So we've talked in the past about trying to get this bone to slide backwards. We just did this MobilityWOD with Jill Miller. The ball sits right here, and then she presses on it and tries to get this bone to slide backwards. This lateral malleolus, which is kind of the outside of the ankle here, needs to slide backwards in order for this to clear. So you can have a physio work on that. We showed you how to go ahead and block this tissue with a ball and then try to push your ankle past the ball. Well, check this out. Go ahead and come sitting. Well, one more on your stomach, one more second. One of the things we want to see, though, is that I should be able to move this calcaneus back and forth, and what will end up happening is that people can't, and the whole motion of the bone gets blocked. So this is a nice little trick to free this up. Go ahead. Now let's go ahead and sit. Come cross-legged. And so what's going to happen is that we put this out in the same position that we did last time, and what happens is Jill put this right in front of the ball, right in front of the ankle bone, and then she pushed past it. So what's going to happen now is that with that block here, go and put your knee on the ground, Court. Let that knee drop out to the ground. And then this position allows her, we can block the ankle, and then she can push on this herself. She takes this to end range dorsiflexion, and then this feels like the thing I do to her on the physical therapy table. And what's great is that she can wind this up herself, and then keep the knee down, and go ahead and see if you can push to that heel bone yourself. So she can push that to end range dorsiflexion, and then she can just mold this a little bit. And what a lot of times people feel is, they're like, oh, look how tight that is. This skin should be sliding here This is a perfect spot to do some of that rotational winding, the ball whacking that we do in this, because all of this tissue should be clean, and the tissue underneath, the tendon, should be able to slide and glide. So if she's tacked down here, it's one of the blocks. But then mechanically, being able to kind of push this calcaneus down, which is really what the ankle is in. Because imagine if I block her here and push her up, that's the position the foot needs to be in the outside of the squat. The ankle is in that position, knee out. That's a really nice knee out position there, right? You can see the foot is straight and the knee is outside the ankle. And so this is an easy way for her to sort of restore that motion. Jill came up with this. It's genius, and it's a beautiful block because this, for me, represented one of the three things that I always felt like you need a therapist to do. Now, knee down, wind that stuff up, see if you can mobilize that ankle. How much do you do? Well, there's just some movement in there. See how she's got that down? She gets some movement in there. The test, retest, whoop, that foot and ankle works better. And what you see is with her Courtney squat, go and squat again for us, is that she can leave the toes on the ground. This remains in a stable position. She keeps her arch down. And look, that knee is out. Does that feel any different from just a second ago?
A little bit, yeah.
But since she already had full range of motion, it's not really a big deal. But this is our way of dealing with this. Test, retest, is that you should be able to keep the flat of that foot engaged, toes down, without having to lift the foot up. Because this is one of the questions we get all the time. Why is my foot lifting up? And your foot's lifting up because you're either blocked because you can't get the knee outside the ankle. And let's just, since we're here, we should talk about it. Knee does not track the toe unless the foot happens to be underneath the knee. The knee tracks to the limits of hip range of motion and ankle range of motion. So as long as it's there, if it happened to have her foot underneath, that would track. But otherwise, we're always looking at maintaining this arch. So she can maintain this position. If the foot tracks the toe, look what happens. The arch collapses. If foot goes ahead, it doesn't feel good because the ankle impinges. Same thing happens with the wrist. If I externally rotate, the wrist unimpinges. If I pull, the wrist is unimpinged. As soon as I externally rotate here, the ankle is unimpinged. So, a little fix for it. See you guys tomorrow. Go to walk.